This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 221 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. It's the first episode for 2021, a year where we're hoping that we might get to travel a little bit more than last year, but who knows. Nonetheless, it is always good to be thinking and dreaming about the kinds of trips we have ahead of us, starting to plan and research and so on. And so today's episode is about planning and booking trips. Now, the method that you take for planning and researching your trip, it seems to be one of those topics that divides people into two very distinct camps. It reminds me of when I talk to fiction writers and they are either a plotter, someone who, details out what they're going to write very, very clearly in advance, or they're a pantser. They fly by the seat of their pants and they have no idea what their characters are going to do. Basically, it seems to me that it's very much the same in travel planning. I'm definitely, my preferred method is definitely more spontaneous, and some of my favourite trips have been kind of really open-ended backpacking trips where for example, I had 2 months to get from Osaka to Bratislava, and apart from the first 2 weeks taking the Trans-Siberian, everything else was open-ended, and I just had that, starting work time, and in between I had all these weeks where I could get there in any way I wanted, and I love that. But I must admit that becoming a parent and also since then the advent of smartphones and having lots of access to information all the time, both of those things have conspired against my spontaneity, but at heart that's how I love to travel. Anyway, I actually polled in the Thoughtful Travellers group this morning about are you a detailed planner or are you a spontaneous traveller? And it got a lot of response and debate. So at the time of recording, it's about 15 hours after posting the poll, I have 32 votes for being spontaneous, but an overwhelming 80 votes for being a detailed planner. So I'll put a link in the show notes to this post, because there are many interesting comments for both options, although obviously most of them are in favour of planning. And I learned a lot, I have to admit. Now, my first guest today is also a very, very keen planner. It is Bob Dimenna. And Bob and I had a great conversation. And I think we were both aware that we had very differing opinions on this, but it was really fascinating to hear it. Now, during my chat with Bob, I actually refer back to an episode on travel planning and research when I chatted with Narelle and Shauna about their, let's call it, exceedingly detailed planning method. I'll leave a link in the show notes to that episode as well. It is still one of my most downloaded episodes of all time, so I guess people love to hear about this stuff. So here is my chat with Bob Dimenna about how he plans his trips.
And I should mention before I get into this that this type of planning and traveling is not for those who thrive off of spontaneity, right, or who travel full time and don't really have a routine to their daily lives. I don't think this is the ideal method of travel for you. This is very specific for those who don't get to travel as often and want to just jam everything in because they don't know when they're going to go back. And that's sort of how this started. I am an environmental scientist by day, and so I would travel the United States, and I would have to go and check out properties to see if they were contaminated, whether or not it was from an oil spill or chemical spill. And so my company, based on the East Coast of the United States outside of Philadelphia, would send me across the country almost on a bi-weekly basis. And, so I would maybe go from Philadelphia to Las Vegas or Philadelphia to Los Angeles or, Seattle or Oregon. And I would have to work, but I would also have downtime. And so what I realized is that you could jam, if you plan appropriately and you use the work site as your starting point, you can then really be efficient in your travels once there to see everything that you want to see in a timely fashion. Right. And that's sort of how the travel planning to what it is today began, was just by force. because if I wanted to see these things, I had to be efficient, or I wasn't going to see them at all. And that has now developed into me making my entire vacations this way, planning my entire vacations this way, where I plan down to the 15-minute mark sometimes.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I get that reaction all the time, and I get it. I do not judge people or do not argue with people who say that's too much, that's too detailed. You need to just add something in for spontaneity or just relax a bit. I get it. It's a crazy way to travel. It's really odd, but it works so well for me.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the point. You've got to work out what works well for you, because when I interviewed Narelle and Shauna, they were very much... I want to go away and ask them now, like, do they plan down to the 15-minute level? Because I don't know the answer to that. But that works well for them, and that's how they enjoy travelling. So it's absolutely, like, what works for you is the way to do it. So, yeah.
That's it. And I think it ties to, again, I'm from the United States. So right now I get 3 weeks of vacation per year. That's it, 3 full weeks. But I'm only allowed to take 2 weeks consecutively. So I have 2 weeks to see any destination I want in the world once per year. Mm-hmm. And so when I go, I don't know if I'm ever going to go back. Now, some people might travel to Italy every single year and see it over and over again and explore new things. And that's where you can get a deeper sense of the country and the culture. But I'm kind of on a different path. I think that there are too many places to see in the world. And so once I go to Italy and explore it and see what I want to see, I may never go back to that country. The next year I'll go to Croatia and then Spain. And I want to see the entire world. And so when I do go to these locations, what I do is I figure out where I'm going to fly into, and all of the locations within that country that I want to see, the major cities or destinations, and then I just break it down and get into it and really go for planning my day. I wake up at 6 a.m. and I have this listed on my itinerary. Wake up 6 a.m. If I want to go out and get good pictures, I write it in. Wake up at 6 a.m. before anybody else wakes up. Make sure you go to these locations to get the pictures that you want. 6:30 a.m. this place opens. They have this on the menu that I think I'll like. Go eat that. And so it's once I'm there, my experience is thoughtless in regards to what do I do.
Right.
I already know.
Yeah.
So now I just get to go and enjoy, which to counter that, someone who I talk to, my co-host Elliot, will say the opposite. He likes to go and figure it out on the fly and talk to locals and see what they want to do, which I totally get. But he has admitted that a lot of times he ends up waking up at 6 a.m. and they sit in the hotel. Well, where should we go eat for breakfast? Well, what do you want to do today? What's open? Oh, is that museum open on Sundays? Oh, no, it's not. Like, I already know all that. I already know what's open, where it's located, the walking distance from your location, and I don't know. It's something that has evolved over the years to the point where, another thing I do is if I need to get from, let's just say, Florence to Rome, and if I'm going to drive, I will get on Google Street View and drive the highway on my computer just to sort of get an idea, a sense of what the signs look like, the exit that I'll have to get off of. I'll know what it looks like before I get there. And so when I'm driving in Italy, I already know the street sign that I'm looking for and its location. And I'll do that. I sound like a crazy person now that I'm saying it out loud like this.
No. So, you just sound different to me. But I'm thinking that some people will be all over this and think this is the best idea ever.
Yeah. There's definitely. Yeah, I think you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it, and that's completely fine because I've talked to so many people who hate this, and they think I'm nuts. But, then they're the ones that are having to sleep on the side of the road in a car because they couldn't figure out where to sleep that night. So you know what? It has its moments.
There are definitely pros and cons of both approaches. Absolutely. Yeah.
The one thing that I do recommend more than anything, though, when it comes to the Google Street View is I always find what my hotel or what the train station or, the rental car service, what the facade of the building looks like from the street view. So you never have to get there and you're like, is that building it? I already know what it looks like, where the front door is. And,
that is actually pretty clever when I think of the times I've been trying to find somewhere that, it would be handy if I knew what it looked like. This is true.
Yeah. You know exactly what the building looks like, and I've actually traveled down those roads, especially if you're going to like isolated B&Bs. I mean, you obviously need the street view to be available, but if it is, I highly recommend at least doing it in this vicinity of your accommodation. Maybe if you have to get there on your own and you're maybe not sure exactly what the building looks like, it really helps because GPSs kind of get finicky in other countries.
Yeah. No, actually, there's a few times when that would have been very handy for me, I must say. Although, sometimes the stories of things going wrong are even the best stories that we remember, but I hear what you're saying. And obviously you enjoy this planning and research part.
Oh, it's relaxing. I grab a glass of red wine and I sit down on the couch with the laptop and it's a hobby. That's what it is. Exactly. I mean, travel planning is my hobby. Yeah. And I learn about the country and the culture. And so, I mean, my wife will sometimes say to me, you know, you're already looking at the Colosseum in Google Street View. You're going to ruin it for yourself. Or, you know, you dropped the guy on top of the mountain that you're going to go hike on. And now you know what it looks like from the summit. You're going to ruin it. But I don't see it that way. The computer, looking at it through a computer screen, obviously does not do it justice once you're there. Yeah. But I kind of get where you can say, you know, wait till you get there to actually see it. But it works.
I think you have to figure out what works for you. You know, we all travel in different ways. So yeah. That's kind of cool. It's kind of obsessive, but kind of cool.
It's overly obsessive, and you know, I'm very aware of the extent and the extent I'm willing to go through to make sure that these trips are planned perfectly. Now, I should say that if I'm not the type of person to get all, you know, to just be overwhelmed and sad if my trip doesn't go as I plan it to. I am going into these trips saying that this is kind of like my backup. If I get to Rome or I get to Paris or somewhere in Thailand and I find out that there's something way better to do, you know, by talking to a local, or, you know, he's like, no, don't go to that restaurant, go to this restaurant. I do that. Right. Yeah. It's by no means something that I need to be held to. Sure. It's open for interpretation. And like, you know, if something sends me on a different trajectory, I don't avoid that. Yeah. So yeah, it's just kind of like something to fall back on, a guideline. That's also down to the 15-minute mark. And I should say that I will plan for spontaneity. So, you know, from
there'll be free time
5 p.m. from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. is just free time. And I write it in there. So I plan for free time, but it's still free time nonetheless.
Yes, it can be spontaneous.
Bob and I recorded this chat some time back, and it's one of those chats that's popped into my head so many times since, and editing it just now to put it into this episode gave me all this pleasure again. Bob, I love your travel planning method. Never in a million years could I be like that, but I just love that people like you exist. So good on you. I'm still impressed. Now, my next guest is Karen Emanuel, and she is also a meticulous planner, but she confesses that there are two quite big downsides to her brand of meticulous travel planning.
My husband and I are complete opposites, so obviously I arrange all of our travel. Right. He's a fly by the seat of your pantser. Mm-hmm. I'm not, and I think it probably, I am that type of person that plans all the time. It's my job. Sort of what we do as a company, it all has to be meticulously planned out. Right. And being an entrepreneur as well, you have to be pretty well planned. Although I know a lot of entrepreneurs are not, and they're much more ideas people and leave the planning to other people. I've got more like that in my day-to-day life as I've got older. Mm-hmm. But when I go away, I want to know exactly where I'm going to be. I can't bear that not knowing. And again, that's changed because when I was younger, I mean, I've sort of backpacked around Europe and various other places and traveled by myself loads with very little planning and just going wherever I wanted to, when I wanted to. But I guess that's more when I've got unlimited time available to me.
Yes, true. Yeah.
Because I have limited time, and I want to know that when I get somewhere, I've got a really nice place. I want to, I want to know where I'm going next. My husband also always teases me because I can't stay more than 3 or 4 nights in one place. And I said, well, it's because if I'm going somewhere for the first time, I want to see as much of it as I can, not so rushed that you're only a night here and there. Mm-hmm. So you've got a little time in each place, but to see as much as I can. But what happens, there's 2 real big downsides about being a meticulous planner. One is I cannot tell you how much time I spend tying myself into knots about where I'm going to stay for that 2 or 3 days.
Right.
And I go backwards and forwards and sideways, and then I start trying to find the best deal, and then I think I might have seen something better somewhere else, and I go back, and it's I drive myself mad. And also I'm spending all this time, which in my time is kind of quite expensive and it's at a premium. And yet I'm spending it, I don't know, trying to save maybe £10 here and there, or making sure that I get, maybe it is the challenge, making sure I get the best place. But on the other hand, I think I enjoy planning. So maybe that's because it gives me something to look forward to. Mm-mm. So I think that's one thing. Now the other big downside as well is, oh my, if something goes wrong, I go to pieces.
Oh dear.
So yeah, if in the middle of the journey something doesn't work out exactly as I've planned it to, I get really upset and grumpy and just horrible. So yeah, flying by your seat of the pants, at least you never have that disappointment because you don't know what you're going to be doing.
Yes, you don't know what you're missing. Yeah, you're certainly not doing a good job persuading me to become a detailed planner, let me tell you. So I might not be persuaded, but if the Facebook poll I did today is a broader indication of everybody out there's love for detailed planning, probably 75% of you will love what Karen just said and what Bob has said. So I'm curious to see if that poll result holds up further. Now, my final guest today is Nissy Astassi from Expedia. You might remember she spoke in my episode on travel trends for 2021. And as part of our conversation, I asked her for some secret tips. Well, maybe they're not completely secret, but anyway, she gave me some good ideas on booking and some things I didn't know. And I thought that is a nice way to end off a planning episode, because when you're doing your planning, of course, you are going to be doing some booking at some stage. And she had some interesting kind of insider info to give us. I can't let someone from Expedia go without asking for a quick tip or hack. How can we make the most out of our booking experiences?
Absolutely. I've got a few of them. So,
okay, go.
One thing that we do every single year is we partner with the Airlines Reporting Corporation to analyze billions and billions of lines of data and essentially ticket prices and, from all different avenues, all different outlets, all different destinations, because we actually want to find out the best day to book in order to get the cheapest price, but also the best day to fly. So when we looked at the data for, 2020, we found that the best day of the week to book a trip is on a Sunday. That's specifically for domestic flights and also international flights. Mm-hmm. We found that people could save around, 15, almost even 20% in some instances by booking their ticket on a Sunday. In terms of departing, we found that the best day of the week to sort of start your trip is a Thursday or Friday. So for domestic flights, this is specific to the U.S., you'll probably want to start your trip on a Friday and not a Monday to save around 20%. For international flights, you'll want to start your trip on a Thursday to save around 25%. So those are some two really interesting, factoids that we think can really help travelers.
That's impressive. I'm happy to book on a Sunday. That's kind of a day where I'm sitting around travel dreaming. So that seems kind of appropriate. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we also always talk about this is a tried and true Expedia hack. And that is our packages and the idea of bundling, because the more you book, oftentimes the more you save. So it's really such an insider thing that, I think people don't realize is available to them and sort of how it works. But if you go through the packages path on our website, I think a lot of people think that that's sort of like those all-inclusive packages.
That's what I would think. It sounds awful, but yeah.
I know. But what it actually is, it means that either an airline or a hotel partner has a price that they don't actually want exposed. And so usually when they do that, it means that it's a heavily discounted price, and they don't want their competitors to know that they have reduced the price that much, because then the other airlines or the other hotels will also reduce their price and make it really, really competitive. So they hide it by bundling it with something else. So what we do, we sort of do that for them, and we hide the prices. So all you see is the package price. Mm-hmm. But when we say package, that could literally be a hotel and a car rental, a hotel and a flight, a flight and a car. So, or even like a flight and an activity. So there's all of these different combinations that you can go in and find. And it's really just an amazing, amazing tip. You don't always get, these massive savings, but it tells you can go and sort of, you select your items and it'll tell you at the top how much you're saving and what the bundle price is. But it never shows you the individual price, because that's how,
that's why they're doing it. But yeah, they don't want it to be known.
That's why they're doing it. Exactly. So I
this is
tell
genius.
the story because, when I first started working at Expedia and they were telling me about this, I was like, okay, well, let's see what if this actually works. And I was booking a trip to Spain for my cousin's wedding. And fun fact about me, Amanda, I am terrible at planning for some reason. And I always book everything super, super last minute, which is incredibly detrimental because it means that I end up paying way more than I need to. And I'm always scrambling at the last minute. So, here I am 3 weeks from my cousin's wedding. I haven't booked my ticket yet. It's also the peak of summer, which is a very popular time to go to Europe.
Sounds expensive.
And so I am absolutely stressing, fully prepared to be, ready to pay thousands of dollars for a flight that probably could have cost me half of that had I booked it a couple months earlier. But nonetheless, I'm absolutely committed to trying to find a better deal. So I go into the package path and I was like, okay, well, let's see if this actually works. And I just start all of these different combinations. And, her wedding was in Seville. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to fly in there and that I was going to have to fly into either Madrid or Barcelona. So I started messing around with that. And so I found this flight and I was like, I'm just going to add a hotel for one night and see what happens. I'm not even kidding you, Amanda. I saved $1,000 by adding a hotel for one night.
No way. Wow.
So, yeah. So, it was, if I went to go and book 2 flights to Barcelona, it would have cost me like $2,500. But instead, it only cost me $1,500. And I got a hotel room.
And a hotel room included.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I never would have thought that this was a thing. A package is something I've just always avoided. So
I know.
That is very useful insight.
It's so confusing for people because when you hear package, you think all-inclusive, flight plus hotel, plus some sort of like a, cheesy all-you-can-drink bar thing. But no, when we say package, we mean just your ability to bundle multiple things for a really great price.
So now you know when you're doing all your detailed planning, you've got some detailed booking tips as well. I don't know, I'm sounding terribly facetious. And I do plan. It's not like I just wander the world aimlessly, as actually delightful as that sounds, but it's not really the way of the world, especially not at the moment. And I haven't had any luck planning many trips lately. They seem to be forever cancelled. But anyway, I hope that you have enjoyed hearing some more perspectives on planning travel, and you'll either have agreed or disagreed, but that's okay. There are a bunch of links that I want to let you know about as well. I'll leave a link to the Thoughtful Travellers Facebook group poll on whether you're a planner or a spontaneous traveller. The comments in there alone are particularly interesting to hear of all the different ways that people are either spontaneous or detailed in their planning. And also episode 128 talks more about this topic.
So I'll leave a link for that as well. Thank you so much to my 3 guests. A huge thank you to Bob Dimenna from the Traveller's Blueprint podcast. You can find them at thetravelersblueprint.com or anywhere you get podcasts. It's a great one, so I do highly recommend having a listen. And thank you, Bob, for sharing your planning tips in great detail. And I'm sorry if I sometimes sounded amused, but I'm still amused. But they're great. I love it. Thank you also to Karen Emanuel of Jicaro Island Lodge in Nicaragua. You can find out more about Karen's spectacular lodge there at jicarolodge.com. And a huge thanks to Nissy Astassi from Expedia at expedia.com for her tips as well. Don't forget to join our Facebook group for Thoughtful Travellers. There's a link in the show notes, or just search for Thoughtful Travellers in Facebook. And during this year, 2021, I'm going all out to make sure that people are talking about thoughtful travel. And I've got a hashtag Thoughtful Travel Daily project going. So you can find some thoughts and ideas and pictures and links and all sorts of things about thoughtful travel every day with the Thoughtful Travel Daily hashtag. And you'll find that in that Facebook group. You can also find me posting about it on LinkedIn or on Instagram. You can find me on both at Amanda Kendall. And join in the conversation. The show notes for this episode are at notaballerina.com/221. So I hope you all have had a pleasant start to 2021, and I look forward to sharing this journey of whatever this year will bring to us along with you all. As always, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.